In this episode, I want to talk to you about rebellion today. Not the loud kind, not the kind that screams or protests and demands attention. The quiet kind. The kind that happens when you choose cork over vinyl, when you pick wood over plastic, when you say no to the synthetic and yes to what the earth actually gave us. This is a different kind of revolution, and it's happening in living rooms and kitchens and bedrooms all over the world. But before we talk about rebellion, let me tell you a story. Last week, I walked into a brand new house, beautiful house, expensive house. Everything was perfectly designed, perfectly coordinated, perfectly sterile. The floors were luxury plank, the kind that's supposed to look like hardwood but cost half the price. The countertops were engineered quartz that sparkled under the LED lighting, and the walls were painted with low VOC paint. Everything was perfect, and everything felt wrong. I stood in that kitchen, this beautiful, expensive, expansive kitchen, and I felt nothing. Like the space was holding its breath, like I was standing inside a very expensive photograph instead of a home where people actually lived. We've been conditioned to accept fake as normal, to see synthetic as superior, to believe that materials made in factories are somehow better than the materials that are grown on Earth. But our bodies know the difference. Even when our minds have been convinced otherwise. Somewhere along the way, we got convinced that fake was better than real. That plastic wood looked cleaner than actual wood. That vinyl floors were more practical than cork. That synthetic meant superior. We traded the earth for the factory, and we called it progress. The marketing was brilliant, really. They took our desire for convenience and turned it into a selling point for inferior materials. Easy to clean, they said, as if natural materials couldn't be maintained. More durable, they claimed, as if forests haven't been providing building materials for thousands of years. Cost effective, they promised, as if the true cost was just the price tag. But here's what they didn't tell us in that trade. We lost something essential. Something that our bodies recognize even when our minds don't. We lost connection. We lost authenticity. We lost the quiet satisfaction that comes from living surrounded by materials that were once alive. Walk into a home with synthetic materials. Feel it. There's a flatness, a disconnection, like the space is holding its breath. The air feels different. The acoustics are wrong. Everything looks perfect, but nothing feels right. Your nervous system picks up on this immediately. It recognizes the artificial even when your conscious mind has been trained to accept it. Now walk into a space made from real materials. Cork underfoot, wood grain you can actually feel. Something that's been shaped by time instead of machines. And suddenly the space feels inhabited, like it's breathing with you instead of around you. The difference isn't just aesthetic, it's biological. We were told synthetic was convenient, easy to clean, more durable, cheaper. But convenient for who? For the manufacturers who could mass produce materials in factories instead of working with forests and quarries and cork oak trees that take decades to mature. For the retailers who could stack identical products from identical suppliers in identical warehouses. Or for the installers who could lay a floor in half the time because every piece was identical. Or for us. Because the convenience comes with a price. Floors that gas off chemicals for years after installation. Materials that can't be repaired when damaged, only replaced. Surfaces that look perfect for one day, but show every scuff, every scratch, and every sign of life. More importantly, materials that end up in landfills after a few seasons because they can't be renewed or restored. The convenience was never really for us. It was for an industrial system that values speed over substance and profit over performance and efficiency over beauty. It was for a supply chain that needed predictable, controllable, mass-producible materials that could be manufactured on demand and shipped anywhere. And somewhere in that optimization for industrial convenience, we lost the soul of our homes. But here's what's happening now. People are waking up. They're walking through their homes and they're asking, why doesn't this feel right? They're touching their floors and wondering why they feel nothing. They're breathing their indoor air and questioning what they're actually breathing. They're noticing that their luxury vinyl plank doesn't feel luxurious at all. That their engineered surface feels engineered. They're rebelling. Not with protests or picket signs, but with choices. Choosing cork that comes from trees that live for centuries instead of vinyl that's manufactured in months. Choosing stone that was formed over a millennia instead of composite materials mixed in vats. Choosing materials that age beautifully instead of materials that just degrade. Choosing floors that feel alive under their feet instead of floors that feel dead. This is rebellion in its purest form, refusing to accept what you've been told is good enough when you know there's something better. It's saying no to a system that prioritises convenience over connection, efficiency over authenticity, and profit over permanence. And it's happening everywhere. In suburban kitchens where families are ripping out laminate and instead choosing reclaimed wood. In urban apartments where young professionals are investing in cork instead of luxury vinyl. In rural homes where people are choosing local stone over imported engineered surfaces. Each choice is a vote. It's a quiet declaration that we deserve something better than what mass production offers us. Real materials give us the things that synthetic materials simply can't. They give us connection. When you walk barefoot on cork, you're connecting with something that once lived, something that breathed, something that grew slowly and intentionally over decades. You can feel the difference. Your feet know that they're touching something real, something with history, something with life. They give us uniqueness. Every piece of natural material has its own grain, its own pattern, its own character. No two pieces are identical in a world of mass production that's radical. Your cork floor will never look exactly like anyone else's cork floor. Your home becomes truly yours because the materials themselves are unrepeatable. They give us longevity. Real materials don't last longer. They just last better. They develop and they become more beautiful with age instead of just older. That's what natural aging looks like. Stories written in the grain and texture of materials that lived alongside you. And they gave us peace of mind. You know what you're walking on. You know what you're breathing around. You know that when this material reaches the end of its usefulness in your life, it can return to the earth without poisoning it. There's something profound about living with materials that don't carry hidden toxins, materials that don't require warning labels, and materials that improve the air in your home instead of compromising it. But maybe, most importantly, real materials give us back our relationship with the natural world. In a culture that's increasingly digital, increasingly artificial, increasingly disconnected from the earth, choosing natural materials becomes an act of grounding. It's a daily reminder that we are part of nature, not separate from it. That our homes can be extensions of the natural world, not barriers against it. This rebellion isn't about being anti-technology or anti-modern life. It's about being pure, pro-human. It's about creating spaces that support our well-being instead of compromising it. And it's about choosing materials that connect us to the natural world instead of separating us from it. It's about recognizing that our homes are the foundations of our daily experience, and that foundation should be built from materials that enhance life, not diminish it. Every time someone chooses cork over laminate, they're casting a vote for forests over factories, for slow growth instead of overproduction. Every natural material purchase is a small investment in a different kind of economy, one that values quality over quantity, performance over disposability, and beauty over efficiency. This is how change actually happens, not through grand gestures or public declarations, but through thousands of quiet choices made by people who decided they deserve better, who've decided their homes deserve better, who've decided the earth deserves better. People who understand that every dollar spent is a vote for the kind of world that we want to live in. And right now, in homes across the world, people are voting for authenticity. They're choosing materials with stories, materials with character, materials that connect them to something larger than the industrial system that's been selling them substitutes. So I want to ask you something. What rebellion is happening in your home? What synthetic substitute are you ready to replace with the real thing? Thanks for being here. I'll see you on the next one.